NWAOKORO, and I'm the Deputy Mayor of the City of Newark, in charge of International Relations and Diaspora Affairs. I'm here to talk to you a little bit. First, I'll do an intro about an event that is coming up on June 24th, where we're going to be having an in-depth discussion about matters, issues that matter, especially as regards to leadership election in Nigeria. So often the time people ask, who's a true leader? What are the qualities of a true leader? In my book, like if you ask me, what is true leadership? True leadership is a leader that listens to the people. The key to being a good leader, especially when you are a public servant or when you're a leader of the people, when you are occupying an elective office. So the first thing you have to understand is that your power belongs to the people. So because your power belongs to the people, you got to see yourself as a servant. Not as a dictator or necessarily as a supreme leader, but you got to understand that your power comes from the people. So how do you exercise that power? How do you exercise the people's power? The first thing you got to do, or the leader has to do, is to listen to the people. If you listen, then you understand what the yearnings of the people are, what they want, the directions they want you to go to. So a leader has to, besides listening, so when you listen and understand what the issues are, what the people want, then you exercise such powers, knowing that the power belongs to the people and that you are accountable to the people. So a leader has to also lead by example. So when it comes to you, you're not going to be such a leader that goes by do what I say but not what I do. So you have to lead by example. If you want people to act a certain way, you start with yourself. So when the people see that, oh, this leader is humble, this leader is accountable, this leader listens, so people will begin, unconsciously begin to act like that leader, begin to do the right thing. It's not always by shouting or by using force that you can lead. So when you listen and then when you exude or exemplify, the way you want the people to be. So those are the traits and the qualities of a good leader, So now when that begins to happen, especially in the case of Nigeria, then being in leadership will begin to appeal to people, especially the youth. The reason why the youth are not really thinking about politics or to get involved or taking over is because they look at it as Nigeria, for instance, continues to recycle those old folks that are there, and Nigerian people don't talk good things about them. So these young people that we have are really not looking at trying to get involved or to be like them. So when you lead, for instance, if you use the example of United States of America, our former president, Barack Obama, led very well. He led by example. So every youth, when I go around the city of Newark, where I'm the deputy mayor, you hear kids, youth talk about, oh, they want to be like Barack Obama. They want to be the next, black president and all that stuff. That is what a true leader should leave for the people. So, and I think the youth, then the issue of Nigeria also, the reason why youth are not involved, nobody is indoctrinating them. Nobody is kind of like getting them into the system and then grooming them so that eventually they will take over. So, but all this all boils down to the structure of the nation. How does Nigeria operate? Because I think if Nigeria, as far as I'm concerned, is more or less a lawless society. Lawless in the sense that, yes, the laws are there, very beautiful laws, but implementing those laws, there are hindrances here and there that make it very hard for those laws to be implemented. Corruption, of course, is number one. Bribing judges, bribing policemen, all these things hinder effective, working of the law. So if you don't have the law right, then you can't produce good leaders. You know, the reason why America, I can't talk about now currently, but the reason why America will produce somebody like Barack Obama is because there's a rule of law. The people understand this. But in the case of Nigeria, where at times the leaders are selected but not elected, you know, so that becomes an issue. So when the people vote and their votes count, then you know you can begin to demand accountability from your leaders. So, but in the case of Nigeria, it is difficult to for things to work. So now, what is the solution? So the solution, I would think, is Nigeria needs complete overhauling, restructuring. You see, people hear about restructuring. When you talk about restructuring, people go haywire. They think restructuring means breaking up. No. Restructuring doesn't necessarily mean breaking up. America restructures every day. Restructuring simply means let's look at how we've been doing things. Let's look at what has worked and then see how we can make it better. Restructuring means let's move from a place where we are stagnant, where things are not working the way they're supposed to a system where things, you know, will work more efficiently. So Nigeria needs restructuring. It needs restructuring in education, for instance, you know. So our education has regressed for, we used to have better education in the 70s, in the 80s, as compared to what we have now in Nigeria. So now the education sector needs restructuring, needs complete restructuring. So now you can have government officials that are supposed to be handling the budget, you know, for our tertiary or high institutions or educational sector, owning universities, owning secondary schools. I expect them to fund, you know, our educational system properly. It cannot work. There's a conflict of interest. So what is my suggestion? I'm going to use education as an example. That government needs to give autonomy, you know, take their hands off our education system. And how can we do that? Somebody would ask. I would say there are 6 geopolitical systems in Nigeria, zones rather in Nigeria. So government can say this year we're going to, every quarter for instance, we're going to free one university, one federal university, you know, in this quarter from each zone. So what we're talking about, every quarter, government is freeing about 6 federally owned institutions. Give them autonomy. You can say something like, okay, we're going to give you X amount of money, $1 billion, for instance. Mr. Federal University of Technology, Owerri, give us a proposal. What you're going to do with this money? How you going to have your autonomy? How you going to stay on your own? How, after we give you this money, you're no longer going to be part of our educational sector budget. So we give you this money. Use it. Tell us what you're going to use to sustain yourself. How are you going to sustain yourself with this money? So when you begin to do stuff like that, you know, then the country can begin to produce serious-minded individuals. Serious-minded individuals will now become serious-minded leaders. So everything has to be in place, you know. And then the issue of why Nigeria can be policed, we've said that repeatedly. You know, things like the Nigerian police is overstretched, you know, is overstretched. So you can't have a police like that and then you expect to police the nation properly. I'll give you an example. In this city or in the United States where the police, you know, departments are decentralized. You don't have one national police. In the city of Newark where I serve as a deputy mayor, our police officers only concentrate in the city of Newark. All their jurisdiction is in the city of Newark. If, for instance, a police officer in a marked or unmarked police vehicle veers into maybe any of our neighboring, you know, cities, Irvington, East Orange, or South Orange, you know, the moment they cross the boundary, they cross the border, they become suspects. So people look at them, oh, what are they doing here? You know, as against, like in the case of Nigeria, whereby instances upon instances, a police officer is promoted in Kafanchan, for instance, and sent to Abakaliki. He goes to Abakaliki where he hasn't been before and is expected to be an effective police officer. Meanwhile, they don't have a system like here. You have a system whereby other officers will pass information. Abuja, or Kafanchan to Abakaliki, totally different demographic, different system altogether. And because this officer, when he gets there, what do you think he's going to be doing? He doesn't understand the area. And then the system of road check and extorting money from people, that's all he's going to be doing. You know, then let's reverse it. This officer is not promoted. He's fired from Kafanchan. But he's from maybe in Soka or somewhere. But because he has that mindset, he understands the policing in Nigeria. He can move to Mbiri or somewhere, you know, and recruit his own officers and begin to set up roadblock. Because why is that possible? Because that one national uniform allows things like this to happen, you know. So he can effectively, operate as a police officer, because what Nigerians know is the police uniform, the national police uniform. Now turn it around. Let's decentralize the police force. There's still the national police that now mans all the federal establishments, you know, parastatals, federal ministries and all that. That is their job. Now each state has its own police, you know, different police uniform, different officers, different, you know, they no longer report to a national police, you know. So now if you have, for instance, Imo State Police will concentrate and get effective policing Imo State. All the officers will only be recycled in Imo State. So they understand Imo State very well. So when you promote somebody and send them from like Owerri to Mbi State, you know, or to Okigwe, or to wherever, they understand the area. As against, you're going to move somebody from Owerri, the national system that we have now, you move somebody from Owerri to somewhere in Kaduna, an area where he doesn't even speak the language, the native language. So you can't police a nation like that. So because, again, Imo State police officers have one police uniform, it will make the officers to think twice before they do anything illegal. Because it's not easier for people to know who they are. It's not easier for somebody to actually say, oh, this so and so. And you can actually pinpoint that, yes, it's police officers from Imo State. Abia will have their own different type of uniform, as against what is going on now with the national police. You know, I can easily, let's say I get into Nigeria now, and it happens. All these things are things that happen, and the officers have said this severally. So I can get into Nigeria just because my friend, my schoolmate, is a DIG or commissioner of police somewhere, and I tell him, well, I'm coming to Nigeria on so and so date. I need X amount of officers. If it's posted in Gombe somewhere, he can send me 12, 6, whatever, 8 police officers to come to where I wait for me. And when those officers come there, if there's anybody that is maybe that I want to take over their land or that is giving my family problem, you know, all I have to do is point them out. These officers will know who these individuals are. So once they know that, if it's 2 weeks or 1 week that I'm staying in Nigeria, once I leave, these officers can go and pick that individual or can victimize such a person. All the people know is that Nigerian police has come and arrested somebody. But guess what? On their way going back to Gombe, remember that's where they are from. They can kill this individual. They can do whatever. You know? 1 week, 2 days, 3 days, whatever down the line, they are still looking for this individual. The family goes to the neighboring police station asking them, oh, you guys came and arrested so and so. They say, we don't know what you're talking about. But guess what? The people that know what happened came from Gombe and they've gone back to Gombe. That case will never be solved. There are several cases like that in Nigeria. So Nigeria, I think, needs restructuring, you know. So restructuring will help the issue of, often in time we also say that Nigerians are being ruled and not led, you know. So yes, again, it comes from the structure. It comes from the structure when, for instance, I was just reading an article that whereby the former chief of NEVA staff returned about 2-point-something billion naira that he stole. What kind of a system do you run that somebody who steal that much money from a system and now he's returning that? So we need complete restructuring. For Nigeria to work, you know, we need complete restructuring. So, and I think Nigerians in diaspora can do a lot, and we've been doing a lot. Just to give us in the diaspora credit. I remember when this President Buhari first came on board, I was one of those folks in the diaspora that came with all kinds of proposals and on things how to make Nigeria work, because we believe that this president meant well and the team. So because of that euphoria of change, we all jumped into Nigeria, trying to contribute our quota, thinking that we've now had a government that is focused, a government that is serious, to rid the nation of corruption and then and listen to the people. But unfortunately, I'll leave that for Nigerians to judge what has happened. But Nigerians in the diaspora are ready, if we give, they'll be given the opportunity to come in and do things. But I know because, but the unfortunate thing is that when Nigerian diaspora venture or try to come to make contributions, those folks in Nigeria, because of what they know, because of the way they run politics, they are very afraid of change. So they think and feel that these Nigerians in the diaspora are coming to mess up things for them, are coming to take over. But that shouldn't be the case. It goes back to the same question that I was trying to address before about what makes a good leader. A good leader needs to also make assessment of where you have succeeded, where if you tell the people that you're going to do X, Y, and Z when you come on board, and you need to be able to assess yourself, see where you've worked, see where where you failed, and then begin to make adjustments, So not just sit there, you smell power, you just sit there for the sake of being there, for the sake of being a governor, for the sake of being a president or whatever. If you're not doing the people's work, you should be, a statement enough to excuse yourself and tell the people, look, I can't do this. I can't deliver for health reason or for whatever reason, or because of, for whatever handicap that you have. It could be because you don't have the right education, or because you can't assemble the right team. But Nigerians are not looking at that. So we have to understand that governance, governing a nation, governing a state, is actually one of the most serious things, or a city even, is actually one of the most serious things anybody can do. If you get it wrong, you're pulling every other thing in that city, that state, or that nation down. So leadership is a very serious thing. And I pray that Nigerians should understand that and take it serious. I just want to talk about something. We all yearn for change in Nigeria or anywhere else, but you cannot have a change in Nigeria if you just sit at your home and complain and you don't even vote. So my appeal to everybody is go and acquire your PVC. So that way you can at least qualify to vote. And then when you have your PVC, know that it's a serious weapon. PVC is a serious weapon. Vote your conscience. Yes, Nigerians practice the idea of somebody gives you, during election season, they give you a bag of rice, a yard of wrapper, or whatever it is that they give to you. And then you foolishly go and vote for that individual, knowing that that individual had been there for the past 4 years, hasn't done anything for you. But just because they gave you tinned tomatoes or rice or whatever it is, now you believe this person will rescue you from your plight. No, don't do that. Take whatever it is that they're giving to you. It is your money that they're using to buy those things, So take it, but you know who those individuals are. You know their background. You know them. Trust me, Nigerians, you know who a good leader is. You know those people. So don't be fooled, Take whatever they're giving to you, but on that day, vote your conscience. I know your conscience will tell you to the right individual. Don't bother whether that person had money to give you a bag of rice or whatever. No. Think about your future. Think about if that person, goes in, what is he going to do for you? What is he going to do for your children? So vote the right individual. The right individual will make you, give you a progressive society so that you no longer need anybody to give you a bag of rice or clothes or whatever. So know that your PVC, and which gives you the ability to vote, is actually the tool that you can use to change your life for good. So my advice to everybody is to go and get, I can't say it enough, go and get your PVC and use it with your conscience and vote the right individual. So we are all Nigerians, we know who is who. You can't know, you've been hearing about a certain individual that you can't actually explain how he or she has made money. Or in some cases, you know how he or she has made this money. And it's from corrupt means or corrupt ways. But now he or she presents himself for an elective office, and you still vote for them because he gave you this or he gave you that. You're cheating yourself, you're hurting yourself. Look at those individuals. Those individuals that are humble, those individuals that truly your conscience tells you they will help to change the nation. Vote them in. Give them a chance. And you see that your life will change. So, and I can't say that enough. And then also, let me thank IC Magazine and Gossip TV for the good work that you're doing. Let's just continue to create this awareness. So, eventually Nigerians will get it. Nigerians will get it and begin to practice democracy. Even though at this point, we are, in Nigeria, we are not really practicing democracy the way it should be practiced. Like the American-style democracy that we're looking to do. People are not expressing themselves the way they should. Even when they express, their expressions don't count the way they should, because there's so much interference on people expressing their democratic rights, whether it's from outside the country or within the country. So we have to work and continue to perfect this. So, but at this moment, democracy is still a work in progress, not just in Nigeria but in Africa. But because we want change, let's continue to vote. Let's continue to make that change. The change, change starts from the individuals, not just, the individuals. If you begin to if I want to change now, I have to change myself to that change that I want, and then collectively, if everybody does that, sees it the same way, then collectively we have the change that we need. So I appeal to Nigerians to please, don't take it for granted. Don't take your ability to vote for granted. Go and get your PVC. So we talk about the youth getting involved, So I do not think that is a problem, because honestly, the youth have been getting involved. If you look at the era of James Ibori and when Bankole was the speaker, and now the Senate president, all these can be considered to be youth. A lot of the governors also started when they were under 50. So it is not a question of the youth being involved. I think the youth are involved, but what the problem is, the preparedness of this youth. Were they properly groomed? Or were their fathers or godfathers or whoever put them there, just put them there to serve their purpose? So again, it goes back to what I talked about, restructuring or having the rule of law work. If the rule of law works, it doesn't matter whether it's a youth or an older person, So if you're too old to lead, the rule of law will weed you out, So it will weed you out because you can't perform. You can't perform after a certain age. So because you don't have the ideas, especially in this day and age of social media. So the problem is not just that the youth are not involved, but how prepared are the youths? Because the youth are there. If you get the youth like even a 14-year-old or 20-year-old, to for some reason win an election and become a senator or become a governor, and if he's around those same old corrupt folks, those same people that call the shots, before you know it, the same youth, the same young person will now start sounding like those same people that we are complaining that Nigeria is recycling. So it's more than just the youth getting involved. It's about overhauling the system. We have to restructure Nigeria. The rule of law must work. If somebody goes, foul of the law, he or she has to be brought to book, prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. So whether you're an older person or a younger person, it doesn't matter. What kind of a system would allow somebody, a service chief, or like I was reading earlier, I believe is the chief, either the chief of, the former chief of Air Force or Naval Force that stole 2-point-something billion. So so there is something, there's something wrong with the system. It's not the age bracket of the individual. Because the moment a system that creates a situation whereby something like this will happen has a problem. So Nigeria needs overhauling. Nigeria needs, to be restructured. Because usually, if the problem is just about the youth not getting involved, the youth usually don't wait for anybody to invite them. They take over. They take over. So in the case of Nigeria, the youth can take over, but they take over. If they take over, where are they taking Nigeria to? To the same messed up system? It's actually dangerous if we have our youth take over now with the system the way it is. Because that means the system, that means corruption will linger for a very long time. So the problem is Nigeria needs to be restructured, changes need to be made. The system needs to be sanitized before the youth can now take over a good system. In a system that law and order would operate in. A system that will hold people accountable. If you're found corrupt, then you'll be prosecuted. So that is a problem. Not necessarily youth, as much as I want the youth, to take over. They can't take over in this system that is all messed up, but they can take over when the system is restructured. So anybody can now come in. So that is a problem. So again, democracy, the way it's being operated now in Africa, I think has a problem. I don't think it serves Africa and the third world well, because democracy in Africa is still channeled towards the colonial powers. So the case of Nigeria, every time there's an election, America has interest, Britain has interest, all of them all have interest. And they begin to pollute the system. They begin to dictate to the people what system, somehow they begin to manipulate and influence it, So I remember when Jonathan was still in power and America was campaigning against him, So America would invite, I believe that time, if my memory still doesn't fail me, I think about 12 governors were invited to the White House then, and the president actually told them, gave them a reason, the then president gave them a reason why America would prefer to work with then opponent of Jonathan, who is now the president, Buhari, gave them the reason. So, and then promoted that, and it got to a point whereby America, the guy that was a campaign manager of President Obama then, Axelrod, even came to Nigeria, to act as an advisor to the then Buhari campaign, So you look at all those things, and yet, where is the standard of democracy? If America could do that, America is now complaining that Russia influenced their election, but yet America goes around influencing elections, in Africa, and I just gave the example of Nigeria. So, so now, just because Russia is seen to have influenced America, America is agitating, America is complaining. But they do that to African countries. So democracy, the way it is set up in Africa, is not serving us. You take the case of the Francophone African countries. France is still holding them by the jugular. They can't do anything. They can't even elect, a true nationalist. No country in Africa can, without the influence of the colonial masters. So our leaders, African leaders need to tell themselves the truth. Who are we serving? If you're serving the people, look inwards. Your solution, the solutions to your problems are inwards, are within you, are amongst your people. Get the right people. Stop looking at the Western world. You can never find a solution. They will always protect theirs, you know. So, and that is a problem. You know, that is a problem. So if the Western world also wants to help Africa, they should help Africa to make sure that we strengthen, you know, our law enforcement, the rule of law working. But it appears to me that they don't want it to work because it doesn't serve their interest. They would rather that the Nigerian or African leaders steal as much money as they can steal from the coffers of their various countries in Africa and dump it in the Western, you know, banks. It serves their purpose. You know, it enriches their economy. You know, it creates a buoyancy for their various countries. And so I think Africa needs to before we continue with democracy the way it is, Africa needs to do more research, study this thing, and see whether it's working for us. It's part of the restructuring that we're talking about, you know. You cannot take the big elephant, democracy, yes, because it works in America. You know, democracy cannot work if the rule of law is not in place. It can never work. So yes, it works in America, but the rule of law is in place. So if you do something, if you steal the public money in America, you'll be prosecuted. You know, regardless of where you take it to. But guess what? If you steal money from the Nigerian government or from any other African country and you dump it in an American bank, you know, at times, or in any Western bank, then the money is safe. Some of them do not, you know, complain. Some of them do not even make known stuff like that because the money grabs them to enrich their economy. The money is in their banks, so they can use it to create economic activities, create jobs, build factories, manufacturing base. So I have a problem with the way democracy is in Nigeria. There's because this democracy, for instance, if you look at Nigeria, I think Nigerian government is overwhelmed. The structure is overwhelmed, the way it's structured. There's so much duplication of services, you know. We need to trim down the government in Nigeria. Like, for instance, the National Assembly. I personally don't think that Nigeria needs a National Assembly the way it's structured. It needs restructuring. We can save money from there. And of course, the police has to be decentralized for efficiency. The current policing doesn't work. So all these things have to be in place for a vibrant society to be created, for democracy to work. It can't work if you fail in one area. So everything, I mean, there's a problem. So this problem cannot be solved with restructuring. Again, I employ everybody. We're going to get into in-depth discussion about all these topics, all these things that I've talked about on June 24th, you know, at Aso Rock Restaurant on East Orange. I believe the address is 611 Central Avenue. You know, where a panelist will be set. I might also be a member of that panelist. And then come with your questions, come with your curiosity, come with your ideas, you know, make suggestions. Nigeria is for all of us, you know, so let's put our brains together. Let's find a system that works, you know. And then the leadership of Nigeria, please, if you give you these ideas, listen to us. Nigeria doesn't belong to just you, it belongs to all of us, you know, so we want it to work. We don't hate you. We don't say it because we don't want you to be there, you know. I mean, when the issue of the nation becomes little things, you know, like, why should Nigeria be debating issues like cattle grazing? It becomes a national issue. It becomes a national. It's a commercial venture by individuals. Why should somebody allow their cows or cattle, you know, to veer into somebody's farm, destroys the farm, you know, trespass into somebody's, destroys the farm, and yet some Nigerian leader is defending it. You know, Instead of the person whose property, whose farm is destroyed, go to court, sue this person and get remedy. That's what it should be. People should graze their cow on their own properties, on their own land. It's a commercial venture. When you sell the cattle, you don't share the money with anybody else. So why should that be a problem? So if government wants to help, government should help you acquire your own land, acquire whatever you want to do. You know, cattle should not be veering and trespassing into people's farm, destroying it, and then with AK-47 shooting farmers, killing people, and nobody's doing anything. So what kind of lawless society is that? You know, let's tell each other the truth, you know, and stop this ethnic or whatever, you know, a problem that we have. Let's thrive. Let's make Nigeria work. Again, I just want to thank IC Magazine and Gossip TV for the good work you're doing. And Nigerians and Nigeria, I see you. Let's make this country work. Let's make it work. It's a beautiful place. I love it. I'm an unapologetic Nigerian. And please, leaders, let me appeal to you again. Listen to us in the diaspora when we speak. Some of us are frustrated. Some of us want to come home. Some of us look at little things. Why Nigeria is not working? We have the solution. We have the answers. We can make contribution. Give us an opportunity to make such contributions. You know, Nigeria, they say, people will come and say, oh, Nigeria is a complex. No, Nigeria is not a complex society. But it's a society where nobody has articulated what the issues are, and then develop a roadmap, you know, that will work. But we continue to bicker on religious grounds, on ethnic grounds. You know, it won't lead us anything. Let's stop wasting our time. You know, it's either we belong to one Nigeria, or then, you know, we can you know, go our separate ways and protect our own destinies. But I want Nigeria to work. If Nigeria works, there will be no other place in the world like Nigeria. It's a beautiful place. Please, folks, let's preserve it. But we must restructure. Nigeria can't work the way Nigeria is structured. We must restructure. The education system must be restructured. The police system must be restructured. The whole thing must be overhauled and restructured for efficiency. You know, again, I thank IC Magazine and Gossip TV for the wonderful work they're doing, creating awareness, creating exposure to all these problems. And I implore everybody to, you know, come out on June 24th, 2018 at Asorock Restaurant in East Orange, New Jersey, 611 Central Avenue, where these whole issues, the issues that matter in Nigeria, especially as regards to the forthcoming 2019 general election. Let's discuss, let's, you know, put our minds together and talk about, you know, the way forward. Talk about how we can make for a better Nigeria. Thank you again, and God bless you. Have a good night.